Hey guys, welcome. Welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He's Frank. It's not even the real podcast. I've given up. All right, they can have their podcast name. I don't care. Withdrawing from this fucking stupid ass team. Fuck. The Bears lost to the Washington Commanders. They lost 15-18 is the proper way that you say that. They didn't lose 18-15. That's not how you say it. They lost 15-18 to the Washington Commanders on the road in Washington. Bears dropped to 4-3, remain in the last place in the NFC North. Frank, I swear to God, man, we've done this podcast way too many times.
Yeah.
In just of terms of sheer frustration and disappointment. 0 points in the first half, 15 points in the second half, and they lose on, as I'm sure you're unaware, the dumbest Hail Mary I think we've seen as Bears fans. Raw reaction. Are you with me in terms of apathy? Are you angry? Are you pissed off? Are you walking away glass half full? How you feeling after a game like that?
I am pissed off but apathetic at the same time. And ironically enough, it's not...
There's got to be a word for that, right?
I'm sure there is. And I'm sure it's a German word too. 100%. Excuse me. Like, ironically enough, though, I'm not upset at the Hail Mary. I'm upset, as we'll probably talk in length about Tyreek Stevenson specifically after the fact. But as I was finalizing my notes, I was writing in as if it was going to be a win. Like, Hail Mary gets batted down. And... Jack, even if that does get batted down, I don't feel very differently about that team after that performance coming off of a bye week than I do after they caught it. Them catching, Noah Brown catching the Hail Mary was like a cherry on top of a gut punch. I was like, okay, that sucks. But the game still sucked in general for the Bears. Even if they come out unscathed, because you still take away the positive, hey, a rookie quarterback who played bad for three and a half quarters, puts together a couple drives. He shows he has the grit. Cool, that's fine. That's a cool little talking point. Even if they win, you probably prop that up a little bit more for the win. But he didn't particularly play well. The offense didn't particularly play well. And as a matter of fact, this looked like week one all over again, where Caleb is missing throws errantly. The offensive coordinator is like in his own head again numerous times. The head coach is making bozo decisions. Granted, he luckily this time he didn't make any stupid challenge calls, but that was like the only thing missing. He ends the game with 3 timeouts on a critical play. He allows them to get 15 yards. I mean, I'm just rattling off what was wrong with the game, and all of that would have still been wrong with the game had Tyreek or whoever got their hand on that ball at the end, I forget now, would have batted it down. It was still a shit game. It was an unprepared team. It was an unmotivated team. And the things that we're hearing afterwards, I guess that's like the apathy of like, just like you said, we've seen that before. We've seen this team come off of byes and just look like they haven't played football for a year. But the anger is, what happened after the fact. Seeing tweets, seeing the Tyreek Stevenson video, seeing Jalen Johnson be pissed off about them not calling a timeout. Cole Kmet talking about guys maybe not taking practice that's all pissing me off. I was not pissed at the end of the game. I just sort of blankly stared at the screen.
Let's see, this would be 3, 7, and then that'd be 10. So in 10 years as a Bears fan, 10 seasons, they have 1 win coming off a bye. John Fox was 0-3, Matt Nagy 0-4, Eberflus 1-2.
1-2 now, yeah. Wow.
So when if you're a Bears fan and you're saying to yourself, God, why is this? It feels like this team never wins coming off a bye week. You're not wrong. It's just so unacceptable. It's so disappointing. And overall, I agree with you, Frank. Even if Noah Brown doesn't catch that, you're still not feeling good about anything that you saw in this game. But I think the thing that my biggest takeaway for this game is just the reaffirmation that your head coach is not a coach you will win any significant game with. Yeah, you can beat the bad teams. You can make them look silly. We've talked about it numerous times in terms of him being conservative. Him punting on that 4th and 1 is just like, look around, like really take in what is going on. You have these 3 really great games going into your bye week. You have Chicago, you have the entire city behind you. You have everybody excited. You get flexed into the game of the week on the road, and you punt. It's just like, it's so frustrating that he just keeps reverting back to this guy who just cannot, he plays to not lose. And you see that in the Hail Mary, where it's like a perfect example, literally in the NFC North a week ago with the Lions. Dan Campbell, he brings pressure and he gets to Sam Darnold before he even gets the throw off. What does Matt Eberflus do? He uses a guy to spy.
That was going to be my point.
Oh, well, no. It was, he's black. He's checking the running back.
We don't care. We want it. My problem with that is anyone I have yet to see anyone justify the spy or the 3-man rush. And let's also talk about, not literally, but just notate here, that was not the first time in the game he sent the 3-man rush. This man was so terrified of Jaden Daniels running that he sent the 3-man rush a couple times. And you would text like, is that Billings into coverage? But hold on really quick, Jeff, before I talk.
Billings. Yeah. That's all I was going to say is he had Billings drop back into coverage. Yeah.
But it's like, not only did he have the spy, you're showing me in real time you don't know how to manage a football game in game, because we want Jaden Daniels to run there. That's what we want to happen. We want backyard laterals and crossfield. Exactly. Yeah. That's what we want to happen. That's exactly what we wanted. Did you think Jaden was going to get past everyone for 60 yards? Just abhorrent decision making.
It's just the whole thing where like you mentioned, the 15 yards that he just gives up to the sideline, and he's like, well, it doesn't really matter. And to the Bears media credit, they push back on that, saying, like, how does it not matter? You're giving him a better a closer throw. And he's like, well, if it's not close, you don't, if you do guard the sidelines, then they just go for the Hail Mary there. It's like Jaden Daniels isn't going to make that throw with a rib injury. Like it's just not going to happen. And also, Frank, here's the biggest concern for me. And if you want to talk the game, we absolutely can, because believe it or not, there were some positives to this game in terms of Caleb's performance, in terms of DeAndre Swift. There were some positives that you could discuss if you really wanted to. However, I think it's so important to touch on coaching, because if you've listened to the Bear With Us podcast, if you've stuck with us this long, first of all, congrats on finding it, because people steal our names and, whatever. But we've been talking about this coaching staff for 3 years now, and just not really feeling like it's the right decision to keep him. Ryan Poles decided it was. He had an opportunity to reset everything, and he just didn't. And it's this lame duck season, and things were kind of on the up and up. And one of the things that we gave Matt Eberflus a ton of credit for, and trying to rationalize Ryan Poles' decision to keep Matt Eberflus was, well, he's built a good locker room. He seems like a player's coach. They really seem to buy in. They like him. That is all in question now. Because if you've been paying attention to any of the players talking about last night, they are openly questioning the staff, the coaching staff. Jalen Johnson talking about how he had a conversation with Matt Eberflus about how they probably should have guarded the sidelines. And, maybe we should have used a timeout because it felt very rushed. And you have Tyreek Stevenson just not even paying attention when the play started. He was supposed to be on Noah Brown. And Matt Eberflus defends not using a timeout, saying, well, everyone was in position. No, they weren't. Tyreek Stevenson was literally having Bears fans point to him, saying, hey, turn around, fuckface, the play is going on. And you're going to tell me that everyone was in the right position and a timeout wasn't necessary? Well, Jalen Johnson told me it was. And I'm going to trust the all-pro cornerback who's getting paid a fuck ton of money.
I agree, and I the one scenario that you did not bring up was DJ Moore talking about the handoff to Doug Kramer, him saying like, yeah, we practiced it a couple times, but
we'll get there.
You know, we didn't really think it'd be happening in game. And not only that though, Jack, and I know this extends to Shane Waldron as well, but again, this is the same coaching staff. Accountability goes across everything. You know, the whole staff. So the fact that it took a Doug Kramer fumble at the goal line, a goal line fade, which was also pass interference, but it really doesn't matter at that point. You're gaining it an inch on the goal line. For Shane Waldron, he had to exhaust every option of cuteness to get to just, hey, let's maybe give the ball to Roschon Johnson, the best short yardage back on the team. And it worked. Like, it's absurd. Again, his play calling and his decision making reverted immediately back to week 1 after we talked about so much of what was working the last 3 weeks. And they put up the stats for Caleb. Look at how good he's been playing the last few weeks. And again, like, not to take anything away from him, but a good portion of that is Shane Waldron got his head out of his ass and was like, hey, we can just do some common sense shit here. We can run off tackle and then branch that off to a play action fake, and we can go from that and do this in short yardage situations. We got a 4th and 1 package that's really fucking good. And none of that happened at all this game. So to your point, I don't know if this coaching staff is losing the locker room, but they certainly did nothing to continue to warrant trust, because I would assume there was some, you know, in the beginning. And I think I guess last thing in that realm is DJ Moore has talked about, yeah, you know, they talk to Tyreek Stevenson and the front office will sort of do what they do, but we have to sit him down as the player leaders, because that's what Eberflus has sort of tasked us to do as the you know, leaders of the team, as the captains of the team. And on, you know, on one hand, I'm like, okay, that's understandable. I get that. But that's been the case for 3 years now. And it's not exactly like we've been a winning football team. And it's like, okay, the leaders of the team are going to take over. Like, do you remember back in the day when, like, Ray Lewis would be like, hey, he had a talk with the DC, but we got him. We got him right. You had faith in Ray Lewis. You know, you had faith in these dudes. And that's nothing, no dig at anyone who's in these conversations with Tyreek Stevenson. But where I'm going with this is, I think Matt Eberflus is avoiding confrontation, is avoiding accountability by having his players do it. And I think that's going to start rubbing people the wrong way. I've seen nothing over the last 3 years that would prove that theory otherwise. We heard stories. We knew what happened when people fucked up under Lovie Smith. I'm not trying to rehash and say he should still be here, but I'm just saying that's a different type of coach. He ran the same scheme, but that was a different type of man running the whole organization. He was the CEO, and when things fucked up, they fucked up. But not only that, though, like I guess I couple that, because on the other hand, Jack, is, you know, okay, you're having your players sort of self-regulate, police the locker room, whatever you want to call it. Okay, whatever. Have that philosophy. But then you go up to the press conference numerous times with numerous answers to questions about just saying lack of execution. You're only talking about your players. And again, everyone in Chicago, and I know you know, on your angle, it was more of just, you know, being fun. It's a new Detroit coach. Who cares? But everyone from day one made fun of Dan Campbell with how abrasive he was and how loud he was and just how much of a dude that he's just a dude, a dude's dude. Never, that's not a real football coach. Yeah, I don't think you were that extreme, but like, the jokes were funny. But every fucking time it's time for him to take accountability, he stands up on that fucking podium, no matter how big or small the goddamn thing is, and he says, that was on me. Immediately after the game, I pulled the guys in the locker room and I said, that's on me. I'm dying on this sword. And you know what, Jack? I'm not going to bullshit you. Sometimes it isn't on him. So I've watched games where Detroit has lost, and it's not only on him. Does he make some of the crazy 4th down calls? He's gotten carried away. Yes, he has. But again, some of these plays are just execution there too. Like, you can hide behind execution every time, because you're right. On paper, every play should work because every player should be perfect in their execution. That's not how it works. You can't execute a fucking backup center getting a handoff in a key critical moment of the game. That's not execution. Was it executed poorly? Yes, but you just don't call that play. You fall on that sword. So again, like, we're seeing this for 3 straight years, and you sort of excuse it the first couple to some degree, because you're like, we're supposed to lose. Like, we're rebuilding, we're retooling. I want a better draft pick anyway. You know, it's not a big thing. I want to develop Justin by any means. It doesn't matter. But we're not here anymore. This season isn't just about developing Caleb. It's a big part of it. This is a playoff-ready team. And last year, while they may not have been playoff-ready, they superseded expectations, and they lost 3 games that they had a 90-something% when we went over this last year. That's a playoff team with a regular coach. That's a playoff team with a run of the mill. I mean, who would that just think of? I mean, that with Jeff Fisher, you put Jeff Fisher as a coach last year, and this year we're performing much better.
Yeah, you've left me speechless because you've hit every nail on the head. I mean, this team is 4-3, and to me, that's completely unacceptable. You can't look at this roster with these players, these offensive skill players, these defensive players, and tell me that this is a 4-3 roster. And yes, I know that they have a rookie quarterback playing and a rookie quarterback who's learning, and they've put a lot on his plate, and they've asked him to do a lot. And the quarterback position is better than it was last year. You can say whatever you want about Justin. Justin played great last year, but Caleb, just as a pure quarterback, has just been better. And you can look at the stats and you can tell me that, the 3 completions at half. I get it. It was not a good game for Caleb Williams. Make no mistake about that. That was a terrible, terrible first 3 quarters of football for Caleb Williams. It was awful. A lot of missed throws, a lot of miscues. But if you watch the tape, there is a lot of things about execution. And the fact that Matt Eberflus is relying on his player coach, his player leaders to have those difficult conversations. We have a glorified DC then. Cosplaying as the head coach, sitting in the head coach's office. That's it. That's what we have. And to act like it's so disappointing for Matt Eberflus to really, again, just all of the goodwill that he had built up over the last couple of weeks. You're like, okay, this defense is balling out. And to their credit, they balled out again. They played an almost perfect game right up until the last fucking second of the game. It's so, and then you have the penalties and the ugliness, the mistakes, the sloppiness coming out of a bye.
Yep.
It's so it's unacceptable, and it can't happen, and it just makes me, I'm just going to speak for myself. I feel like you're on the same page. It just reaffirms all of the concerns that we had about keeping Matt Eberflus with this team. It sucks. And Frank, here's a little activity that I prepared for you. I've not told Frank what it is. This is the first time he's hearing it. Frank, in the NFC North, who would you rather have, Matt Eberflus or Matt LaFleur?
Matt LaFleur.
Would you rather have Matt Eberflus or Dan Campbell?
Dan Campbell.
Would you rather have Matt Eberflus or Kevin O'Connell?
Kevin O'Connell.
Fire the coach.
Yeah. 100%.
It's that simple. It's that simple, Frank.
I agree. No, and Jack, the biggest, I hope people understand what we mean when we say it's not only just about wins and losses, because again, this was another one of those games. I was going to come on this podcast and be very upset with this team with the way they performed and this coaching staff, even if that Hail Mary gets batted down. We can chalk that up to being a fluky play, and that's okay. But that, had the game been 34 to 30, and they went, okay, cool, offense ball, they look good, the execution was there, defense maybe gave up some untimely, but whatever. That's not what we saw. What you described, Jack, with the penalties, with the illegal man downfield, with the holds, with the false starts, for as bad as Caleb played in that first half, this was one of those games that's unacceptable, because if it's not one thing, it's another. If Caleb just plays bad, I'll live and die with Caleb, and he has a couple bad games. Every quarterback does. Okay, cool. Chalk that bitch up. Go next week. That was the problem was it wasn't just him. He would start to make a few throws, and you're there, and all right, cool, 3rd and 2. Oh, false start. Oh, illegal man downfield. Now we're 3rd and 17. And that happened numerous times throughout the game. And the other thing that reared its ugly head, and it's something that we've continued to talk about, is saying, hey, we like the progress of this offense. We like where Shane Waldron has gone these last 3 weeks. And I think that can carry over. I think Caleb can carry over. What I don't think can, or maybe not don't think, but I'm skeptical that can, is the offensive line. And that reared its ugly head of the one big thing that we've been critical about Ryan Poles on is, okay, if the pieces are all here, maybe they look okay. 1 injury, 2 injuries, this thing starts tumbling down. because they had Amagajian at left tackle, and my God, I don't know if I've seen a worse left tackle since Jamarcus Webb. I mean, that was a revolving door. That was terrible. And then Bill Murray goes out. I don't even know who they had at guard, but he was a swivel for a couple drives. I forgot who they put in for him, but I mean, it's bad. And Jack, that really leads me. I didn't have too many grand takeaways because, again, the defense balled. We know they do what they do. Both offenses sputtered. Jaden played better than Caleb. I'm not trying to spin it. They were both bad. He played solid. Caleb played bad, especially for 3.5 quarters. But the one thing that I take on when I think about, we've talked heavily on this episode about Matt Eberflus, about the coaching staff, about accountability. But the one thing that we've also said throughout this podcast, especially in the more boring episodes in the offseason when it's, there's not much to talk about, is what we've seen and what players will tell you is you sort of take on the personality of your head coach. We've talked about conservative things that he does. We talk about him tucking his tail. And you know what I saw? That my big takeaway was, as I'm watching this game, I'm like, man, Jaden Daniels is getting really fucking good pockets. And that's just a good unit to have. They have a much better offensive line than the Bears. I would love for Caleb to be able to hold the ball right there for 5 seconds and let his guy get open, right? But as the game went on, it was less about, hey, they're more talented, because they are. That's a point I'm not going to try to, stick my foot in my own mouth with. But the one thing that I saw was how much more fucking physical they were. I have multiple times in my notepad on my iPhone noted this game is getting chippy. And every time it got chippy, it looked like Washington got the better of the Bears in those chippy moments. In those just mano-y-mano, I'm in your face, the plays are over with, but I'm pushing you. I'm pushing you back. I'm the one that's showing you who's the better team, the more physical team. Not only did that translate, in between plays, because not very many penalties were called for that, it translated on the field. Our defensive line played well for what it did, and just for being, that's a really good offensive line. But there were just times where no pressure whatsoever. Not only that, you're talking about blitz pickups, and this is just a well-coached team. This is just Dan Quinn having his guys prepared. Blitz pickups were very good. Montez Sweat, I think, was the only guy who had a consistent impact throughout the game, and he's a superstar. He's going to do that no matter who's blocking him. But I just, excuse me, all throughout the game, and then, I didn't even flip the other side. Our offensive line, even when the starters were in, were getting abused. And the first couple of weeks, if you wanted to chalk it up to, they need the gel, it's not all that worrisome because they're, lost on stunts and they're just getting used to this. Okay. I don't agree with that, but okay. I don't remember there being one stunt that Washington pulled. They had 4 guys pin their ears back and beat the dog shit out of our offensive line. This wasn't any smoke and mirrors. This wasn't Spagnola coming with safety blitzes and corner blitz. This was just 4 guys on the line beating 5, sometimes 6 if Mercedes Lewis was in the game. That was my biggest takeaway was, and I guess, again, to wrap it into how we're talking about Eberflus, they're taking on the personality of their head coach, and Dan Quinn is a physical dude. That's what he does. That's what he's done everywhere, as the DC, as a head coach elsewhere. Matt Eberflus, we don't know. We see quit. How many times have we seen this team quit with him? Week 1 against the Packers, they were at a fucking funeral by halftime. This is another game where the whole game, they're just not in. They have no energy at all. I don't want to say they quit because the offense did wake it up, but it's these vibes that you're getting. Again, I don't want to make it like I want Eberflus to yell at people on national TV and be snappy with the reporter.
But you want him to show some fire.
That's my point. But would it fucking hurt sometimes? No.
Yeah.
Show me something. Yeah. Show me some form of I'm a fucking human and not what you talked about before we record. Everything is rainbows and sunshine. No, the fuck it's not. It's not.
It's not baseball. It's not baseball. He'd be a perfect baseball manager. He really would. A guy who just keeps everybody even keeled through a long season. Yep. Don't get too high, don't get too low. But it's the NFL, man. It's such a different sport, and he's a great DC. Like, to the defense's credit, which they should deserve a ton for even keeping the Bears even close in this game and actually giving them a chance to take the lead. The run game, I was like convinced that Brian Robinson was going to set a career high in terms of rushing yards, and the run defense absolutely stepped it up and really turned things around. Jaden Daniels, he was fine. I wasn't super impressed. I know he's playing hurt, but you know what? He's playing. So like you always like to say, like, if you're in, you're in. No excuses. To the point about the offensive line, Frank, this is from Carmen Vitale on Twitter. According to Next Gen Stats, Caleb Williams was pressured on 51% 0.6% of dropbacks, and had just 2.47 second time to pressure average. It's the highest pressure percentage and quickest time to pressure of his career. And just like you said, it wasn't like they were, bringing the house every single time. It was 4 guys beating 5. It was bad. And granted, I'm not going to get too crazy about Amagaji. He had that incredible run block against for DeAndre Swift on the touchdown run. He took out like 3 guys himself. I'm not going to get too crazy. It's a tough situation to get brought in. He hasn't played much. Obviously he's coming in for Braxton Jones, who might be out a couple weeks. So we're going to see a lot more of Amagaji. It sounds like. So hopefully we see, he feels a little bit more comfortable. But it just the interior of the line, the problems that you, myself, Nas, most Bears fans that we're always keeping in the back of our minds, like, hey, this looks good. This offense looks a lot better. Like, really excited about, the throws he's making and this and that. Always kind of just keeping it, even mentioning like interior line still doesn't look very good. Like, what's going to happen when it's not the Panthers pass rush and it's, the one of the worst pass rushes in the league? What, are they going to look better? We just saw that they're still bad. They're still bad. It's just confirmation that, and that goes again. You can blame Ryan Poles, and I do believe he deserves some of the blame. Absolutely, he signed a guy who's not even playing in Nate Davis. They're trying their hardest to get rid of. He did nothing with the center position other than signing a free agent who, whatever, a 1-year deal. It's nothing. He Tevin Jenkins, credit to him, but he's always hurt.
Yep.
But again, I'm going to be honest, Frank. I'm bringing it back to coaching because it's something you and I have talked about a ton, especially with Matt Eberflus. Who on this fucking offense has developed at all?
You can squint and say Cole.
Cole Kmet, yeah, but he was yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You can squint. You can say I wouldn't make the argument.
I'm sorry. The guy that on National Tight Ends Day, when everyone else gets the bit, every other team in the league is like, it's National Tight Ends Day. It's not a real thing, but we're gonna get these tight ends involved. Everyone's gonna fucking score. And the one fucking team that doesn't, of course. Yeah, fucking Zach Ertz out there looking like prime Zach Ertz. And then you have Cole Kmet with 1 target. Like, it's a joke. It's a fucking joke. This team, it's just so fucking unacceptable. And it sucks. Here, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna pump the brakes because I'm getting upset. And I will say this. Can I tell you something, Frank? Can I tell you I feel a little bit different about this?
You can, because I think we're in. I was gonna end the whole coaching thing with probably a very similar thing to what you're about to say, so I'm ready for it.
Okay. The reason that this loss it sucks, and it sucks that it happened. It's so much easier for me to digest because the Bears have their franchise quarterback. Caleb Williams, what was he? 5 of 8 for 95 yards in the final 2 drives.
Yep.
In the fourth quarter, Frank, overall, fourth quarter of the season, 39 of 60, 402 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He brought them back into that game. He led touchdown drives. He should have led them to another one, but we know what happened with that fumble to the backup center, fullback, like just whatever. Caleb Williams is a quarterback that we have not seen in Chicago. Stats, throw them out the window. I don't care right now, even though I know I just gave you some fourth quarter stats. I'm talking specifically for this game. We have never seen a quarterback be able to put us in that position, be able to consistently get us there in the fourth quarter to give ourselves a chance to win at the end of the game. And some of those throws that he's making, I'm thinking of that one on the sideline to DJ Moore where DeAndre Swift,
that little
for whatever
drop
reason, where DeAndre Swift, for whatever reason, he's like, I'm not going to block this free rusher. I'm going out. I'm optioning out. And the free rusher comes right in his face, and Caleb just dimes it to DJ Moore. Like, it's that type of stuff where it's just like when you got to have it, Caleb is consistently showing up. And you can say whatever you want about the coaches. Oh, you got to keep Waldron. You got to have that consist. No, Caleb Williams will supersede whatever coach you throw at him.
Yeah.
Given him opportunity, and he will make the correct plays, the correct decisions. Again, it's not going to be perfect every single game. We knew. I think you even said it 2 weeks ago, before the bye week. You said Caleb will have some more rookie games. To me, this was a rookie game. He's at home, and not his home team town. He's literally he's from DC. He had friends and family. It looked a lot like week one, like you said. He looked really nervous. He was sailing throws, looked really uncomfortable at first. Then he finally settled in. Fourth quarter looked like we'd been seeing the last couple weeks. So that's where I'm at right now. While I'm frustrated that this coaching staff just doesn't seem to be it, it's not as hard to digest because it's not the same thing as Matt Nagy, where it's like, okay, who's going to develop Justin now? No, it's like, okay, we have the quarterback. Let's find the right coach to build the rest of it around him. Put all of these great pieces in the correct positions to win the games that they should be winning.
Yep. No, and that's certainly a thought that I have as well, where I thought you were going to go with it, because this is my, overarching feel. And it's why earlier when you asked, like, how are you feeling? There's a lot of conflict, because it's such a weird thing to root for and against your team at the same time. But realistically, this is what needs to get Matt Nagy fired. It's these types of performances. Because again, even if they win that game, I don't feel any differently about Matt Eberflus. If that Hail Mary is batted down, it's the same story time and time and again. We've seen this story before, and you every time it happens, you're like, we've done this podcast before, we've done this a million times. Like, yes, and it sort of has stretched across multiple coaches. So, and I'm right there with you. Caleb is, because the biggest thing with Caleb, and I guess it's a good segue into some positives maybe that we saw throughout the game, is we've seen, like, his rookie games are even different than other rookies that we've had before. Rookie games, when they start like they do that first half, they are chalk. Their confidence is in the toilet. They're not doing anything in the second half. We've already consistently seen Caleb turn things around, get things, except for week one. Week one was just bad. But we've seen him get off the slow starts and just get things going. And once he's going, he's good. And again, it just goes back to me, like, not only isolating it to one game, but again, to your point of once they move on, I'm not worried, because what it all comes down to, Jack, whether you're talking about one game or the future, he knows what he's seeing on a football field. He has the processing skills to do it. He can make every single throw within the flow of an offense, with more backyard football extensions of plays. He can do everything. I'm not worried about him with that. And the one thing that we haven't talked about, which is a huge positive, is he didn't turn the ball over. Again, not very many, if at all, turnover-worthy plays. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, there's still times where I need him to give his guys a chance. That's one thing that he has not excelled in this year, and I'm hoping by the end of the year we can have more data to show, okay, he's gotten better with it, but he has not yet. But other than that, he's not turning the ball over. He's not making turnover-worthy plays, and when crunch time gets here, he's making the plays that need to happen. And the one I thought you were going to bring up, because the DJ ball was great. That fucking sidearm where he steps up, oh my God. What was that, to Keenan? I don't remember who.
To DeAndre Carter at the goal line. To DeAndre Carter.
DeAndre, yes. Oh my goodness.
Where he threw it around Kevin.
Yes. I mean, the arm angle, the velocity, the pinpoint accuracy on that.
The scramble right to throw back again to Keenan Allen. We've seen that twice now this year where he's done that. And it's just like special. That's special. I don't care about the stats at that point. There was nothing, not to cut you off, but there was nothing in this game where Jaden Daniels did to me that I saw where I was like, oh, that's special. Even on the deep ball to Terry McLaurin, like that, he's wide open. Make that throw. Yeah. Now, granted, like you just said, Caleb has had some troubles making those throws. But again, it's so interesting because just real quick here, there were a couple of throws where I was like, oh man, like why isn't Caleb like that screen pass? You know what I'm talking about, where the bubble screen to Keenan.
To Keenan, yeah.
Where he's where you're like, he layers it over him and you're like, what the fuck was that? On the all 22, if you look, the corner was cutting in and DJ just made a hell of a block and it delayed Caleb, because Caleb was like, oh shit, if I throw this, he's going to pick it off. And so when he got blocked, he realized, oh, he has it. And that's kind of what threw that timing off. So it's like those little things where it's like it's such like a quirky play. It's just like not a consistent thing that can happen every single time. That was a lot of what was making some of those misses happen. Where to the point where I'm like, okay, it's not. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about literally anything. It's fine.
Well, the one, I know we're supposed to be talking about positives, but the other thing that it reminded me of that I noted down a few times, the two that immediately come to mind was a play with a throw to the sideline to Keenan Allen, and it was another throw to the sideline. I believe it was to DJ Moore. And we're still consistently seeing these guys not on the same page. And again, players need to be accountable. The one you're
thinking of was Rome.
Rome, you're right. It was Rome. It wasn't. It was Keenan and then Rome. Players are going to be held accountable for that, as they should be. But again, that also comes down to coaching to me. They have to be coached to know, if you see this look, this is the option. If you see that look, this is the like. There's no way. I mean, because one of the throw, I believe it was the Keenan throw. If they're on the same page there, that is a perfect fucking throw to a spot in the back shoulder. But Keenan just kept running. Something's off there, and it's hard for me to continue to blame the players when it keeps happening, and we're seeing breakdowns and meltdowns and other aspects that are very clearly coaching related. Do you get what I'm saying? Again, it's not to take away accountability from them, but it's hard for me to draw any other conclusion at this point when we're seeing it in other facets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just disappointing because, again, it's, I don't want to get too high and mighty because, while we had our criticisms of Matt Eberflus in the past, you, myself, Nas, we were all very excited about the hiring of Matt Waldron. Like, he was our top candidate in a lot of places. I still don't think that I would, I get what people are saying on the other side for the offensive coordinator of Washington. Like, could have had him when his relationship with Caleb, and I've seen people saying, oh, maybe Cliff Kingsbury will be the Bears head coach. Like, they could no. If they didn't hire him to be OC of this staff, why would they hire him to be the head coach? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I just didn't see anything from that Washington offense where I'm like, because Washington fans, I did not realize how much they hate Caleb, apparently, or how much they hate Bears fans. I'm not really sure why. Have you ever had a rivalry with a Washington fan? Have you engaged with a Washington fan, really?
No, that whole thing has been very, very weird.
It's very strange. It's very strange.
I agree.
Credit, again, Jaden has had a great season. But like I said a couple weeks ago, I just don't care. Jaden Daniels being good means nothing to me. I truly don't care, because I truly believe that the Bears they made the right draft pick. Caleb is absolutely incredible. He shows you a lot of just special traits, and I believe that with better coaching, it will unlock everything that we expect it to, and things are just going to get better and better and better. I truly do believe that. But again, this is going to be a rough second half, Frank, of the season.
Yeah.
This was not a must. I'm not going to say this was a must-win game. In my opinion, every game is a must-win game, but whatever. But you had to win a game like this because you needed to set yourself up. You have the Patriots, you have the Cardinals coming up here, and then it's division play. You had to set yourself up in a good position to contend with these teams, and you just look at that Lions team. I just don't see a scenario where Matt Eberflus outcoaches Dan Campbell at this point, and the Bears are able to keep up. And it's just okay, so maybe we need to reset our expectations for the rest of the season. Obviously, the Cardinals game is still a winnable game. Let's not get it twisted. I expect this offense to look a lot better. I think my biggest question, Frank, is just with the slow starts, because I'm not going to be able to find it, but it's they've scored 7 points once in 8 weeks.
No, I think it's 3 in the first quarter. It was one quarter where they scored a field goal. Yeah, so far that's all we have. 3 first quarter points.
So, but why are they so good at it? They're I at adjusting. They don't plan very well. We know that without the scripting stuff. But then they're so good at Matt Eberflus a couple weeks ago with the challenges, he said, I believe in our process. We have a good process. And it's just like, no, you don't. You don't have a good process in any format, in any sense of the word. The process looks like shit. And you have you don't use a timeout while your cornerback, one of your starting cornerbacks just isn't paying attention to the play. He's making fun of fans and like, what are you doing?
Yeah. You also it doesn't ever hurt to just, you have 3 timeouts, call the timeout and make super certain. Do you know how many times, again, I don't want to equate to what I do for work as an NFL head coach, but do you know how many times that I've like uttered the phrase, something like, it goes without being said, but, you know, I like, not to say that you wouldn't do this, but, and you just reiterate it anyway. Like you sort of like drill it in people's heads, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you over communicate every single time, and it's very clear he does not do that.
And if it still happens, it's that much easier to say, okay, we have a problem here. This player, you just didn't get it. What happened? Why did you not understand what I was saying? Yep. But in this case, it's like, now the question falls on you, Matt Eberflus. Why were you so just like okay with what happened? Well, it was because everyone was in the right position, so who cares? It's just like the condescending tone that he takes. The how can I possibly be wrong about this? Like, It's like, dude, you have no leg to. What did I tell you? He's like 3-17 or something like that on the road. And, and I know you mentioned it as well. And I sent it in the text too, where I said, I don't want to hold the record too much against him because those teams were not good. They were built to lose. They were trying to lose at times. But at some point, like, the constant sloppiness, the unpreparedness, the slow starts, like it just keeps happening. So it's like, why does it keep happening? Why do you think that it's okay that this is happening? Why does Ryan Poles think it's okay that this is happening? And if he doesn't, why did he keep this coach in place?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it right now, Frank. I'm going to say it on the podcast. Hopefully I'm wrong. But there is no scenario in my mind that Matt Eberflus will be fired midseason.
No. You can't. You can't because who the fuck is going to be the head coach? Shane Waldron?
Right.
He calls the plays on defense. There's not a DC ready to step up. I mean, you'd have to get the fucking special team. I don't even know where special teams coach is.
Tim Hightower. Show some respect.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tim Hightower. I couldn't think of it off the top of my head.
Just kidding, because special teams also cost us a bunch of penalties as well. Just a dumb, undisciplined team.
That's what I mean.
Yesterday with Tyreek Stevenson poking a guy in the fucking face mask. Like, just stupid, dumb penalties that makes you just wonder why you're a fan of this fucking team. And Frank, I'm going to be honest with you, and maybe this is how I end the podcast this week. If the Bears didn't have Caleb Williams, I think I'd be out. I think I'd be done. I
certainly wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't
because
blame
he's
you.
Literally the only thing that's like keeping me like, okay, maybe if they can get things right with Caleb, because he just keeps showing you week after week after week that he is a special quarterback, and the Bears have never had that. But it's just like you're wasting this defense because you're an idiot coach who hires idiot people and just cannot coach anybody up to their ceiling. On the offensive side of the football. Defense, whatever. I still disagree with everything about that last drive. Where you just rush 3. Yes, you're spying a quarterback on a Hail Mary. You're giving up the sidelines because you're giving an extra 13 yards because, well, it doesn't matter. The ball would still come in bounds anyway. Yeah, but it wouldn't be in the end zone, Matt.
He didn't get into the end zone on that. 15 more yards is huge.
No, it had to get tipped
because
up.
It's also like, are you not paying attention to this game at all? His ribs were very clearly bothering him. He missed throws that he shouldn't have because of his ribs. It was very apparent that he was playing hurt.
And speed him up. Bring pressure. Figure it out. Like it's just
yeah. Well, Jack,
if he is not fired, Frank, after this season, I feel like all the faith that I have in Ryan Poles is going to be gone.
That is the one. Because again, even withholding Poles accountable for the offensive line, we've gone over this. He still has some blame. It's a bad offensive line. There was still so many holes. So we just disagree philosophically on how to build a team from the ground up. He didn't want to go trenches. Right. But again, not going trenches got us Caleb Williams. We continued to suck. Right. You know, like that just was what it was. Mm-hmm. So, you know, next offseason is going to be huge from that department. The one thing is that he's married to Matt Eberflus right now. And if that divorce does not happen at the end of the year, unless something miraculous happens and we win the Super Bowl, then of course you run it back.
Right.
But that's not going, we know that's not going to happen. We have all the evidence in the world, and this season will be further evidence when we probably don't make the playoffs with the team that should make the playoffs. Because as things are stacking up, the Minnesota Vikings don't look all that scary. The only team in this division that's scary to me is the Lions, and then just because of history, the Packers, because they've beaten shit down our legs since I was a baby. So like that's a thing. But Jack, there was a video that came across my line. I think this is a fair way to end this episode, because Matt Eberflus consistently calls himself the CEO of the team, and that's fair. That's what you should be as the head coach. Have you ever watched The Wire?
Yes, good show.
Do you remember? You remember when they would meet at the church with Stringer Bell? He'd get his little runner boys, and they'd be in there. And one of the scenes, I mean, I love so many scenes, but this is one of my favorites. When he says, "You know why the CEO gets paid so fucking much?" They're like, "Well, I don't know." And he's like, "It's because when one of you fucking knuckleheads fuck up, he takes the fall for it. When one of y'all ain't doing what you're supposed to do, y'all can get fired, and that's okay. That's a $7 an hour job. You're gonna go find somewhere else. He is never gonna be a CEO again in his life." And how is that not glove in hand to what we're seeing here? Eventually, the buck stops with you. You can't, and honestly, it makes it worse when you don't take the blame for it. When you get up on that podium and you keep talking about execution, you keep talking. No, he is. I like someone, please. If you've made it this far into the podcast, we're about 50 minutes in. Can you please point me to a clip of him ever holding himself accountable at a press conference, talking about something he did wrong? No. I feel like the closest we get is like, oh, we're monitoring it and we'll see what happens. Like, and then changes do wind up happening. So like things happen. No, I still need to hear you say it. I need to physically hear you say it. But Jack, this is what's going to happen. And because we're passionate, we're fired up right now, and we're looking at this Cardinals game as maybe not as winnable as it was, but we are going to figure it out, and we're going to beat the shit out of Kyler Murray. We're going to win. It's going to be another game where the offense goes crazy, and it's going to be like 32-14. And we're like, you know what? All right. And then New England's New England. I don't have much faith. We're going to win again. And we're going to be feeling good. We're going to go into that Packer week, and you know what's going to happen in the Packer week? We're going to get the shit kicked out of us. Because every time, the one thing we've not talked about, and this is why I said this is why I want to end it, the Stringer Bell, but every fucking time, Jack, this goes back to the Lovey days. Every time this team starts making strides and the expectations start to rise, this happens. Because this was another game. The Washington game was another game where we're going in with momentum off of a bye week against an injured quarterback, and we're thinking, man, these next 3 games are cake before we get to the Packers. And the expectations rose. We can't flex it into the 7 o'clock because that one's a little more important. Cowboys in San Fran has too much history. But we will give you game of the week on Fox. We had a quarterback who got a little nervous first 2.5 quarters. We have a coach and an offensive coordinator whose game plan is, again, reverting back to bullshit of week 1. It happens every single time, and the buck has to stop with him. It just has to.
And it's just frustrating because it's just like, as Bears fans, and the reason I said what I said about if they didn't have Caleb Williams, I'd be done, because I'm just so tired of being the butt, not me specifically, but just like the team that I decide to spend my stupid time cheering for and spending an hour with you each week talking on this podcast here about just constantly being the butt of the joke. It's just like, it's so exhausting, especially because you're right. I know exactly what's going to happen in those Packers games. I can think, Jordan Love, he loves to turn the ball over. This defense likes to turn the ball over. It seems like a good marriage. You still know that it's going to be like 40-17, and it's just the constant shit that we're going to have to endure. Here's the thing. For Matt Eberflus to survive this season, I think he has to go at least 4-2 in the division, with a sweep against Minnesota, split with the Lions, split with the Packers. I think that's the only way he survives.
But how many division games has he's won? 2?
That's what I'm saying.
Over the last 2 years? I know he beat the Lions. And the Vikings over the last 2 years?
The Vikings, right?
I think that's it. He has not beaten Green Bay.
No. And again, that's one of the reasons why we said they should fire him.
Yeah.
That week 1, he should have been fired after week 1 last year.
That was so fucking bad. God. Well,
it's just this Washington loss is just, especially because of what they did last year against Washington. Now, granted, they have obviously a better quarterback this year, but what they did last year in Washington and then what they did this year in Washington, it's just like, where's the improvement? It's just not there.
No, and their defense is
nothing about Matt Eberflus has improved. You can't argue that with me. Sure, he's a great defensive play caller. He's a good defensive coordinator. Fine, I'll give you that. But nothing about him as a head coach in 3 years has improved.
I agree.
And that's unacceptable. It's just because you have a better quarterback. You have better skill players. You have better everything. This is the best roster he has ever had. And they're 4-3. They're one game above 500, and they haven't played anybody in the diviation yet.
I was just gonna say it's not even about like the actual record, because if they were 4-3 and the division game started in week 2, we may be feeling good about this. You lost to a putrid Indianapolis team with a guy who's clearly the worst quarterback in the league. Like, I don't even think it's remotely close with the sample size that we have right now. He's bad. I mean, maybe Deshaun Watson before he got hurt. Those were the two. And you lose to Houston when another game that you can't. I mean, that loss maybe has aged better because the defense performed pretty well against against that team, and then against the Washington team, who again, outside of like the offensive trenches versus their defenses, I think we're a better up and down team than them. Obviously, that's a very important part of the game. But you come with this game plan that you score 15 points against, because what I was going to say was, I didn't mean to interrupt you earlier. This is still a bad Washington defense.
Yep.
We just saw Lamar carve them the fuck up the week before. Not to say that we're on Baltimore's level, but I'm just saying we've seen this defense get carved up against a real offense. And maybe we're just not that. Maybe we're not a real offense.
But the similarities between the Colts game and this game is just sloppiness, on just questionable play calling, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You have DeAndre Swift just destroying this defense, and you just consistently go away from him to make it harder on yourself. It's just, you have 2 terrible 4th and 1 plays in the Colts game and the Bears game and the Washington game. Like it's just so disappointing where this team is at. And it's just funny because, like, if you told me at the season, like the beginning of the season, that they'd be 4-3 at this point, I don't think I would be like this negative.
Yeah.
But it's just because, like, we have higher expectations, and Matt Eberflus simply has not met them, in my opinion.
It's just the way that I think looks, it's just, man.
Yeah, and again, you can't. It's not going to look any better. In my opinion, it doesn't make things better if he comes out and he says, unacceptable, Hail Mary, that was horrible. I should have called timeouts. I didn't do this, or this. I need to get better. Like, it doesn't get better for me, but at least it makes sense. At least you're like, okay, leader of the team, he's saying this, and this. Okay. But then, like, to get upstate for what he said, to not take accountability, to call out the players that they didn't execute, and then to have the players themselves be harder on themselves, Caleb included, or your rookie quarterback included, take more accountability than you.
I know.
That's it. It's done. It's done. It's a wrap.
Yeah,
it's a wrap on Matt Eberflus.
Agreed. And again, a point that just popped into my head, and this is truly the last thing from me, the coaches had to like beg Shane Waldron to coach them harder a few weeks ago. And we didn't touch on that even too much because they responded well to it. We like barely did.
Yeah.
But again, this is the culture that Matt Eberflus has built. And again, we're going to have to go up higher after this year if they stick around to Ryan Poles. Because if this sticks around into year 4, this is also something that he condones. This is a culture that you also built then. We can make excuses through 3 years. You wanted that continuity? Okay. Understand. You wanted to give him a real shot with the real roster? Understand. But we see that things have not changed even with a better roster. We're seeing that before our eyes. And if this is the culture you're comfortable with, Ryan, I love that you got us Caleb. I love a lot of the deals that you've made. You're not the GM for us. And the same way that, like, this is the culture you built with your coordinators, man. You have a fucking coordinator who still wants to baby Velus Jones. We saw it on Hard Knocks. I'm going to pound the table harder. Shut the fuck up. You're pounding the table for a guy who can't play the game of football in the National Football League. We talked about who's the worst, and we won't go down that road. That'll be maybe an off-season episode. But, like, we asked who's the worst Bears player of all time, at least skill position. I think he's the guy for me. He's made 0 positive plays. It's all been muff punts, drop passes, wide open.
Nobody picked him up.
Yeah. So you're not wrong. It's a culture thing. It comes from the top below. Right now, it's primarily on Matt Eberflus, and it's going to go higher if he's not fired at the end of the year.
Can I say this? And I think this is a good place to, because let's try and leave this podcast with some positivity, some optimism. Because I will say this, to everything that you just said, I completely agree that if Matt Eberflus sticks around for a 4th year, there are definitely going to be some very hard questions about that I will have for Ryan Poles. Totally agree. However, I still have faith that what you just said, that you may not even notice that you said, Ryan Poles, he gave him he may have wanted to see what he can do, what he has in his head coach with a real roster. Just like Justin Fields last year. I want to see what he got. Like, I want to see what he's got with a new play, with Getsy. I want to see what he can do with some, with a real offensive weapon in DJ Moore. Let's give him some things to work with. Let's see what we got in Justin. And ultimately he moved on. So Ryan Poles, to this point, he's made a lot of decisions that you and I agree with, and things that make sense. So what I'm going to say is, I got to believe that Ryan Poles sees what we see, even more so because he gets obviously way more access than you and I get to this team. So I got to believe that Ryan Poles is competent enough to know what's going on behind closed doors, sees the stuff with, and let's not get it twisted. The national media clowning the Bears in the way that they're calling out Matt Eberflus as a coach and saying that's some of the stupidest shit they've ever heard, some of the dumbest play calling they've ever, like, the coaches are being called out, not the players, not the Bears players. And that's very rare to me that ever happens. Yeah. So for Ryan Poles, for Kevin Warren, for the McCaskies to see that stuff where that's the coaches getting called out, that has to enter their mind. I have to believe that at the end of the day, we will make a change at the coaching position, and we'll move forward with whoever it could be, Ben Johnson, whoever it could be. We just don't know. We just don't know at this point. Who possibly Ben Johnson could be. Yeah.
No, I'm right. So, I'm right there with you. No idea who Ben Johnson it could be. But no, I thought you were going to end there to say the positive thing is we didn't commit suicide after the game. That was my positive.
We didn't because again, I think we're just more numb to it at this point because it's just like, yeah, of course they lost like that. Why wouldn't they? It's the Bears. Yeah. I think if Packers fans had to sit through that shit, and meanwhile they're just fucking Malik Willis is out there just winning them games. Like, they don't know what it's like to be a Bears fan. All right, they have no clue. Maybe Lions fans get it, but they've also had.
Lions fans.
They've also had, but they had Stafford at least. Like, they had a quarterback who won them games.
Jack, that's my whole thing. We didn't even talk about that today because that's really my. That was like, I guess I didn't round that point off of like why I still would have been mad even if the Hail Mary goes, hits the floor. I want a fun team to watch. That was not a fun game to watch.
No.
You're right. Matthew Stafford had 10 good years in Detroit where it was like, that's a fucking fun offense. Him, Megatron, sort of revolving door at running back, but even a Pettigrew at tight end, like, they had pieces. They were fun. They were fun to watch. Give me fun to watch. Give me Ben Johnson that's fucking doing it. Give me fun.
You don't like 15 points? Jesus. And then in the game of the week, you don't like that?
No, not for me.
Jim Nance and Tony Romo fucking just God, that was rough. Anyways, hopefully it's a little bit better against the Cardinals. I think it will be because I think this team's going to be just fine against the Cardinals. Things are going to get turned back around, and we'll be super happy.
They're going to win 2 in a row, and we're going to fucking fool ourselves like we do every single time. Every single time.
God,
and until they prove us wrong. I know I know exactly what's good. This has been written by the gods.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, thank you all for listening to the Bear With Us podcast. As always, we truly appreciate it. We truly appreciate hanging out with us. If you want to vent, leave comments. What did you not like about the game? What was your worst part of the game? What are you happy with Caleb's performance? Are you excited about DeAndre Swift looking like the guy that we were supposed to be getting? Absolutely. Please let us know in the comments and follow us and subscribe and like us and all that good stuff. YouTube, if you want to see our faces while we talk about the Bears and how stupid they are. If you don't want to look at us, but still want to hear us talk about how stupid the Bears are, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the good stuff. We're here for you, and we always will be. We appreciate you listening. Frankie, we'll talk to you after a Cardinals win next week.
Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.